They say that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And in many ways, we are all on journeys of our own, whether venturing out into new careers, finding our passion and our purpose in the world, discovering who we are and what we want to give to the world. And this journey is lifelong. And the journey, as you already know, is very complex because humans, we are very complex creatures. And so often in our journey, it might often feel that the road is rocky, the ground is uncertain. You might have a map, it might be in tatters, it might have pieces of the puzzle missing. But despite that, taking the first step on our journey is such an important step to enjoying the adventure of our life. I wanted to share with you a few key steps that have really transformed my life in terms of my career, my personality, my beliefs, even to how I dress. Now, I used to be a practicing dentist, and I worked in London in very expensive private practice, filling teeth and making well-heeled people even more beautiful and giving them fabulous smiles. And I then moved to the other side of the world and to the other side of dentistry in a way, because I worked with marginalized, vulnerable people in Asia, from orphans to sex workers. I worked in prisons working on murderers. I worked with communities of people who live on top of rubbish dumps. And I worked with very, very rural farming communities. And whilst I absolutely loved the people, I continued to hate the job because I just don't enjoy poking around, cutting, slicing, and pulling, and basically causing pain. So I took my first career step, which was to leave the career, which was highly specialized, and go into the unknown. So I retrained as a journalist, and I wrote about all sorts of topics from health, travel, beauty, and environmental issues. And I always wrote with an interest in public health. And I won various journalism awards, not because I'm a very good writer. In fact, I'm terrible at spelling and I don't really know much about grammar. But instead, I won awards because I think I asked the right questions. I asked ballsy questions and basic questions. And I also have the persistence to keep asking questions, even when the answers don't seem to come. What that looks like in practice is a bit like a dog with a bone. If you've seen a dog chewing a bone, they will chew, chew, chew. They'll sometimes find something delicious and they sometimes won't. And when they don't, they turn it around and then they keep chewing and chewing and chewing. That is me. It was particularly me when I got onto the topic of the fashion industry and the textile industry's impact on the environment. So I really chewed hard on this topic because there is a darker side to the fashion industry. And it's the darker side of the industry that kept me chewing this bone. The equivalent of one dumper truck of textiles is either landfilled or incinerated around the world every second. And 10% of global CO2 is caused by the fashion industry. Given that we're in a climate crisis, this is a huge, huge number. 20% of industrial water pollution is caused by textile dyeing and finishing alone. And these sorts of data, and might I tell you, there are many, many more horrible environmental statistics. This has an impact on people's health. And I was so shocked that 17 years ago, when I was researching this topic, that so little was being done to raise awareness of these issues. I could not find any body or any organization to interview. So I took another step, which is that, again, I put down everything that I knew and I started Redress. Redress is an environmental NGO working to promote circularity in the fashion industry, to promote sustainable fashion, and to reduce fashion's waste. many ways you could say I moved from looking down into people's smelly mouths to instead working in the bowels of the fashion industry. I say the bowels of the fashion industry because for 17 years I've been focused on waste issues in the fashion industry, which very few people, organizations are aware of. It's a very murky area of fashion and waste. Now, the first 7 years of my career, I really pointed the finger at the industry. And I thought, why is the industry doing this? The industry is making a mess. It's the industry's fault. But as I became more aware and as I became better educated at the fashion industry and more experienced, I realized that I was missing half of the point. I was missing the consumer. So I started to look into the role of the consumer because globally, us consumers are doing quite a lot of damage also when it comes to the fashion industry. Clothing production has exploded over the last couple of decades. In fact, it's doubled since the year 2000. And we're now producing over 100 billion garments every single year. A typical consumer typically might wear their clothing only 7 times or 8 times before it's discarded. And that's partly why 73% of the materials that go into our clothes are either landfilled or incinerated after use. And so with numbers like this, I realized that we have to also point the finger at ourselves. And I'd hate to say that, but I'd also have to, unfortunately, point the finger at all of you and everybody, in fact, around the planet, because we are all part of this. So what does a fashion consumer look like? Well, let's dissect what the word consumer means. In Latin, consume means to destroy through use. So if we imagine a typical fashion consumer, this person might go shopping loads and loads and loads, mindlessly buying, stuffing them in their bags, going home, wearing them once, wearing them twice, wearing them never, ramming them to the back of the wardrobes, and then finally, when the wardrobes are full, chucking it into landfill. Now, the thing about throwing things into landfill is that landfill is like a death. It's the death of the materials that are in those garments and in all things that we chuck into landfill. And so that type of consumer, you could say, well, they are a fashion consumer because they destroyed their clothes through use. But I do not want to be a fashion consumer. I don't like it. It just doesn't feel good to destroy things and to destroy my clothes through use. And instead, I'd like to be a fashion citizen. So I wondered, what is a citizen? So I Googled, what is a good citizen? And the words responsible, integrity, honest, and respect for the rights of others came up. And I thought, yes, I'm going to be a fashion citizen who has responsibility, honesty, and respect for the rights of others. How do we actually tell the difference between what a fashion consumer does and what a fashion citizen does? Well, this is what a fashion consumer sees when they go shopping. So they see things they want to buy. They perhaps think that if they buy these things, then they will be happy. Then they will be the person that they think they want to become. They see bright lights, they see desire, and they want to acquire things. But this is what a fashion citizen sees. They see all the broader impacts that go into our clothes, from the broader impacts that affect people to planet. And the broad impacts of fashion is immense, from the cotton industry, pesticides, to metals and mining, to loss of biodiversity, to water pollution, to microfiber release, to labor issues, to child slavery. The list goes on. And you could think, wow, fashion citizens, they see all the negatives of the fashion industry, and that is why they shop and dress so carefully. This is what a fashion consumer does when they go shopping. They buy a lot of bags and a lot of things without meaning. They don't know what's inside their bags. The bags, they don't have any detail to what they're buying. There is no writing on the bags. There's no writing of their knowledge of what they're really buying into. But this is what a fashion citizen does when they go shopping. They shop with purpose. They put their money where their mouth is. They support good businesses, good products, and supply chains that can really do good for the planet. Now, you've heard of the Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals that, if we can achieve them, we will clean up this planet and it will be a great place to live. And the great thing about the fashion industry is that it can positively impact all 17 of those Sustainable Development Goals because the fashion industry is so big, it's so powerful, it's so complicated, it touches so many lives. So you could actually say that a fashion citizen sees all of the positives of fashion, and that is why they shop and dress so carefully. So I'm sure by now you really want to be a fashion citizen, right? I certainly do. And it really encourages me to take my purchases and my clothing choices seriously. So how do we become a fashion citizen? Well, there are actions that you can take to become a fashion citizen. And the first one is to buy less. Very, very simple. You can buy less clothes and actually save money in the process. And you can buy better. And better basically means buying better quality clothes, better fabrics, better finishing, trims, turn the garments inside out, check how they're made, how they're constructed, are the buttons on, or do the zippers work? Buy better quality. You can buy secondhand clothes, you can buy from sustainable brands, you can buy from global multinational brands who have sustainable capsules or sort of green eco collections. You can also take better care. That means washing your clothes more carefully, not just chucking them all in a hot wash and out they all come, different colors and different sizes. And you can keep your clothes in use for longer by repairing, going to tailors, styling your clothes differently. And only when you're really, really fed up with your clothes, or perhaps you've just changed your size or your style, then you can swap, sell. And finally, you could donate them to charity or into textile recycling containers. Never, never, never put your old clothes in the landfill. But there are also attitudes that fashion citizens can take. Fashion citizens dress on the outside, how they feel on the inside. And I'm a very positive person, and I really believe that everybody, most people around the world, we want a better planet. We want a better life for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our children, for our grandchildren, for our great-grandchildren who are wherever they are. They're not here yet. And because I really believe that we're all good people, I think that we need to dress the part. We need to dress with our values, with our ethics on the outside that really reflects who we are. I also think we can dress to reflect our identity. And I think it's a brave step to say, screw fashion trends. Dress for what makes you feel good, what you like, and what just makes you feel triumphant about yourself. We don't need to follow trends. Finding your own style is really about finding who you are and dressing in such way. So what's the first step to move from becoming a fashion consumer to becoming a fashion citizen? The first step is to dress from the heart. Because if you take that first step and shop and dress from the heart, it might just change the world. Thank you very much.